Mangwanani Malelepo Vukenjani Kleklas, welcome to Africa. Good morning, your portal into Africa's potent stories. Today we explore critical developments across the continent, starting in Tanzania, where journalists' safety and democracy are under scrutiny ahead of the 2025 elections, reported by our correspondent in Madagascar. President Andry Rajoelina calls for a national dialogue amid youth protests. The UN warns a worsening humanitarian crisis in northern Mozambique, while Nigeria secures a $32.8 million settlement with Meta over data privacy violations. Finally, Egypt's Khaled el-Anani is poised for historic leadership at UNESCO. South Africa's latest affairs, entertainment, and sports updates are presented by Arrie Hougaard, our correspondent in Cape Town. Watch us on DSTV 285, GoTV25, OneUp2.com, and NTV Afrika on YouTube. My name is Ashwin. Top story shortly. Let's get into the top stories on Africa. Good morning. Stakeholders in Tanzania have urged the government to create a secure environment for journalists, warning that silencing a journalist is silencing society. The statement came during a national dialogue in Dar es Salaam, convened to deliberate on the safety and security of journalists as the country prepares for its 2025 general election. The dialogue, supported by UNESCO, the Tanzania Human Rights Defenders Coalition, and the Union of Tanzania Press Clubs, UTPC, emphasized the press's role in promoting informed and peaceful public discourse. However, Human Rights Watch has accused Tanzanian authorities of intensifying political repression, alleging that the government has suppressed media freedom and compromised the independence of the Electoral Commission. Now, in response, Inspector General of Police Camila Swambura assured that security agencies are ready to protect journalists and citizens alike, pledging adherence to constitutional guarantees on freedom of expression. President Samia Suluhu Hassan, the ruling party's candidate, called for calm, stating that elections are neither war nor violence. Critics, however, maintain that her administration has grown increasingly authoritarian despite such assurances of peace and reform. Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina has called for a national dialogue after weeks of youth-led protests and a 48-hour ultimatum from demonstrators demanding his resignation. The unrest, which began over power and water shortages, has swelled into broader demands for political accountability and reform. This week, Rajoelina appointed Army General Rufin Fortunat Zafisambo as Prime Minister following his dismissal of his cabinet, but protesters dismissed the move as cosmetic. The demonstrations, some inspired by Gen Z movements in Kenya and Nepal, have become the largest in recent years. The United Nations reports that at least 22 people have died and 100 have been injured, figures rejected by the government. The planned dialogue, to include youth and spiritual leaders, aims to find lasting solutions to the crisis, according to Rajoelina's office. However, protest leaders insist the talks are insufficient without leadership change and systemic reforms. Smaller marches continued in Antananarivo despite police dispersals, marking a sharp decline from earlier mass gatherings as tensions simmer across the island nation. The United Nations Refugee Agency has expressed deep concern over the intensifying conflict in northern Mozambique's Cabo Delgado province, where nearly 22,000 people fled their homes in a single week in late September. The UNHCR described the surge as a turning point, noting that over 100,000 people have been displaced in 2025 alone. Violence, including killings, abductions, and sexual assaults, has spread across 17 districts of Cabo Delgado, marking one of the worst worst periods since the insurgency began in 2017. Many displaced families now face extreme trauma, hunger, and limited access to shelter or medical care. Children face forced recruitment, while women and girls are increasingly exposed to sexual violence. The UNHCR warned that the crisis has become intertwined with climate shocks like cyclones and droughts, further worsening conditions for civilians. Despite global funding shortages, only 66 million of the required 352 million has been received. The agency continues to provide aid, mental health support, and document replacement services. UNHCR urged renewed international commitment, warning that 8 years on, the crisis is far from over. Excuse me. Meta Platforms Inc., owner of Facebook and Instagram, will pay $32.8 million to Nigeria's Data Protection Commission after being accused of breaching the Nigeria Data Protection Act. The settlement, expected to conclude by the end of October this year, follows months of legal disputes and marks a significant victory for Nigeria's digital sovereignty. The NDPC has charged Meta with using user data for behavioral advertising without consent, transferring data abroad illegally, and failing to file compliance audits. In response, Meta agreed to revise privacy policies, conduct localized assessments, and secure explicit user consent for targeted ads. The case signals growing regulatory assertiveness across Africa as Nigeria leads efforts to enforce accountability among global tech giants. Similar fines have recently been issued to other multinational firms under Nigeria's evolving data governance framework. The deal is expected to reshape Meta's operations in the region and influence how international platforms handle African user data, reflecting a broader continental push for transparency, user protection, and fair digital trade practices. UNESCO is on the verge of a historic leadership shift as Egypt's former Minister of Tourism and Antiquities, Khaled el-Anani, was nominated to become its first ever Director General from the Arab world. If confirmed in November by the General Conference, the 54-year-old Egyptologist will succeed at a time when the Paris-based agency faces financial strain and geopolitical division following the U.S. withdrawal. El-Anani has pledged to lead with inclusivity and balance, describing UNESCO's mission across education, culture, science, and communication as global public goods. During his tenure as minister, he spearheaded major heritage projects such as the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization and initiatives to revive tourism. His priorities are expected to include educational equality, cultural preservation, and rebuilding international partnerships, particularly efforts to re-engage the U.S. His nomination represents a milestone for Arab and African representation within the United Nations cultural arm, symbolizing renewed confidence in UNESCO's potential to bridge divides and strengthen its global impact. Those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. Shortly, we'll be joined by Arrie Hougaard as he delivers the South Africa report. But prior to that, it's the weather. As promised, it's time for us to now talk to Arrie Hougaard as he delivers the South Africa report from Cape Town. Arrie, are you there with us?
Yes, very good morning, Ashwin, and nice to talk to you. Good morning to everyone.
Good to have you on the show, Arrie. Let's start with your current affairs. State-owned Transnet remains in deep financial trouble with uncertainty over its ability to stay afloat. Meanwhile, underperforming municipalities continue to make headlines as their collective debt to Eskom grows. And finally, the soaring gold price offers some good news, bringing a boost to South Africa's still strong gold production sector.
Yes, Ashwin, a lot's going on everywhere in South Africa. Transnet, a very big component of the South African economy. At the moment, the challenges is still with high levels of debt. There's a net loss of 1.9 billion that was declared for the 2024-2025 financial year. It sounds like a big number, but it's apparently 70% less than previous years. So it's in the right direction. The challenge at the moment for the freight system is that, of course, Transnet is state-owned. It's a port and freight rail logistics company. That's how it's described. But at the moment, the challenge is the total freight tonnage that's down. So at the moment, they're doing 152 million metric tons annually. So just to put it into context, it was 226 metric tons in 2018. So it went down quite a bit for different reasons that I'll briefly discuss now. But what happened in the meantime is that government opened discussions with private operators starting to intervene with that as well. And so they hope to have the tonnage up to 290 metric tons, 290. So need to double what is currently happening. The challenge, however, is that there's quite a few challenges. The issues is infrastructure, obviously. So it's very difficult to maintain all those freight and transports over the rail. Maintenance delays, and unfortunately also in South Africa, a big challenge is cable theft and vandalism. So that doesn't help the whole infrastructure. Important for Transnet to be operational and functional because there's lots of pressure on the road transport at the moment in South Africa because of that, but some things can only be transported by Transnet. So at the moment, their debt is 138 billion South African rand, but they did get government guarantees of roughly 145 billion recently. But the liability, the net current net liability position is still 62 billion. So it's quite a big number. So let's move on to other discussions. There's elections. There's municipal elections coming up next week. I can see in the media in South Africa lots of heat on municipalities. All the political parties starting to claim that they can serve their community very well. So it normally happens. It's just a year out from all of that, but it's underperforming municipalities that is under threat at the moment. So the challenge there is not it's not service providing only, but it's not paying their clients. There's one example in Eteba local municipality. They in the Eastern Cape, and they owe Eskom that we can see there. They owe them quite a lot of money, 800 million South African rand. The municipalities across South Africa owe Eskom quite a lot of money. They owe Eskom 100 billion South African rand. So that's money that's came in. That's money that municipalities not paid to Eskom. Across South Africa, also municipalities have lots of debt. Unfortunately, there's loans and bonds adding up to 427 billion. So that needs to be sorted out. It's big numbers that I'm talking about that's owed in debt. But basic service provision is important. Some of the service providers waited 1,300 days, creditors, to get their money. So that's quite a long time. It's almost like 4 years. So it's the systems that are not working in certain areas. But what's good from the elections coming next year, Ashwin, is that everybody's trying to think, how can we serve our community better? Because they want to be in those positions. And so basic service delivery, like you see there, that's not in place, is a big challenge in most of the areas in South Africa. So hopefully the money can be used for basic services, and then the rest can fall into place. Just also on the economy side, a bit of good news for the South African economy is that the gold price. So the gold price went through the $4,000 per ounce level for the first time, and it was normally the gold price is typically, they track economic and political stresses, if I can call it that. So if there's stresses around the world politically and economically, then normally gold is a good anchor for you. To put it into context, in the year when COVID was around, the dollar went through the 2,000 level, and when President Trump administration started to do the tariffs on everybody in the world, it went through the 3,000. Now there's lots happening all over the world, uncertainties, and it went through the 4,000. So South Africa produced 100 metric tons of gold per year. That's a lot of gold. But in the 70s and 80s, it was 1,000 metric tons, but it's still 100 metric tons. So that definitely boost or contribute to the GDP in South Africa, and also contribute to employment. So hopefully the gold price will help South Africa in that way. So there's challenges on one side with Eskom, but there's good news also on current news with the gold price doing better at the moment. So that's current news at the moment. That's one.
All right, Arrie, let's swing into your sport as Bafana prepare for a crucial World Cup qualifier against Zimbabwe on Friday, while the South African women's cricket team competes in the 50-over World Cup.
Yes, South African football team, Bafana, the men's team, under pressure now after losing those 3 important points against that game against Lesotho for fielding a player that wasn't meant to play. So that was not good, but now it's an important game on Friday evening. It's in Durban. It's the Moses Madiba Stadium. So that's when they play Zimbabwe neighbours. So no favours going to be there for South Africa. It's going to be a very tough game, very competitive game. In the last 10 games they've played, 2 was a draw. There was 2 that was also won by Zimbabwe, and 6 won by South Africa. Is always competitive against the neighbours. Many of the players of Zimbabwe also play some of their professional soccer in South Africa. I think the goalkeeper is one to mention. So South Africa will have it hard to get that points. At the moment, the reality is that they on 14 points, the same points as Benin. Just difference is goals for and goals against. That's quite close as well. So it is Benin that's got 2 away games they're closing off. South Africa have 2 games left. The one on Friday against Zimbabwe, and then there's one also on Tuesday on the 14th of October, and that will be against Rwanda. So important game. Let's do the first one first and see if they can hopefully beat neighbours Zimbabwe to get to 2026 World Cup football. Yes, and on the cricket, it's exciting. It's the Women's Cricket World Cup taking place. South African team had a bad start, lost to England, quite an embarrassing win by 10 wickets, but jumped back, came back with a convincing win against New Zealand. So now they play, actually today, they play on Thursday, they play against India. Tough game. That's a home game for India. World Cup being played in India and Sri Lanka. So it's a difficult game for South Africa. It's 8 teams in the group. You play all the 7 other teams in a round robin, and then the top 4 go to the semi-finals. So that's South Africa with great players like Tasman Brits and also Marizanne Cup. Hopefully they can do well in this World Cup and qualify for the semi-finals. So that's sport news at the moment.
We certainly wish them all the best. Of course, that statement is limited to the women. You understand my position with Bafana versus Zimbabwe's Warriors. Now, Arrie, Durban remains a favorite tourist destination with the Moses Mabhida Stadium and the Umgeni River Bird Park, renowned for its wide variety of bird species, among the city's top attractions.
Yes, and we talk about that stadium because that's where the football is. And I understand that you must kind of lean towards Zimbabwe in that one, Ashwin. We respect that on Friday, but maybe have a soft spot for Bafana somewhere. But the game is going to be played in the stadium. Look what they're doing there. We've talked about it previously as well. That's a big swing. It goes off from that arch right at the top. You can have a big swing down at the Moses Madiba. So tourists go and do that. Definitely not when it's a game on. It's when there's no games. It's part of tourism there. So you can do the big swing in the Moses Madiba Stadium, a very impressive stadium. That's where the soccer is going to be played on Friday. But if you don't want to do that or have done that already, also the Umgeni River Bird Park, it's just 10 minutes from the city centre. It's 3 hectares big, so it's a brilliant place. There's 800 birds, different birds from 220 species. So it's a great place to visit. It's a great variety. See all the birds in there that they have. There's quite a few to look out for. There's vultures and there's storks, and there's also the southern ground hornbill. It's one of the birds that you can see there. Look at those beautiful birds. So it's great to visit, and it's very affordable. Just 78 Rand for adults and 50 Rand for kids to go and watch, to go and see those animals. That is in Durban. So lots to do in Durban while you're there for this big soccer, Bafana Zimbabwe. And that is the green dove, the green African dove, beautiful. So look at what's happening there at the Umgeni River Bird Park, and we'll be shouting hard for Bafana Bafana for the women's football, and hopefully the gold price will stay, will continue to grow a little bit. So that is all the news. That's the entertainment news at the moment in South Africa.
Sounds like a wonderful spot indeed. Thank you, Arrie, for delivering the South Africa report as only you can.
Thanks, Ashwin. Nice talking, and have a great day, everyone. We'll talk again next week. Bye-bye.
All right. Many thanks to Arrie Hougaard once again. Let's get straight into the economic news stories. Boeing delays hamper Ethiopian Airlines expansion plans. Now, this is important. Ethiopian Airlines, Africa's largest carrier, is facing significant setbacks due to aircraft delivery delays from Boeing, threatening its ambitious growth strategy. With more than 100 aircraft on order, the airline's chief executive officer, Mesfin Tassiu, confirmed that deliveries have fallen behind schedule, impacting long-term fleet planning. Despite the challenges, the airline continues to maintain a strong partnership with Boeing spanning nearly 75 years. Half of its current fleet consists of Boeing aircraft, including 787 Dreamliners, 777s, and 737 models. To sustain growth, Ethiopian Airlines anticipates new wide-body aircraft arrivals between now and 2030 while finalizing rights with Boeing and Airbus. Simultaneously, Ethiopia is advancing a $10 billion new airport project designed to handle up to 110 million passengers annually by 2029. The airline will self-finance 30% of the investment and seek external funding for the rest. Passenger traffic is expected to grow by 15% this year, reaffirming Ethiopian Airlines' dominant role in Africa's aviation landscape, despite Boeing's ongoing supply chain disruptions. South African investment giant seals landmark BEE deal, and this is amid criticism. 361 Asset Management, one of South Africa's leading investment firms, has finalized a major black economic empowerment transaction, granting a 22% ownership stake to a consortium led by MI Capital, the investment arm of the Maharishi Invincibility Institute. The partnership aims to integrate empowerment directly into company governance while funding education and entrepreneurial initiatives. MIL, known for helping over 25,000 South Africans secure jobs, manages a bursary funds projected to benefit 100,000 young people. 361's co-founder Cy Jacobs described the deal as an investment in human potential as much as financial growth. Critics, including Elon Musk and several South African opposition parties, argued that BEE deters foreign investment and benefits a select elite. Supporters, however, maintain that it remains essential to address systemic inequalities and foster inclusive participation in the economy. Political analyst Moeletsi Mbeki has called BEE a virus co-opted by elites, yet firms like 361 continue to position such initiatives as vehicles for sustainable transformation and youth empowerment. Those have been our stories on Africa. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on DSTV 285, GoTV 25, oneup2.com, and NTV Africa on YouTube. Keep in mind, on oneup2.com, spell it out, ONEUPTWO.com. If you click the echo icon, you have access to this and other NTV programs. And by the way, you can have a look at the channels there as well. So, oneup2.com Echo, where prime time is anytime. My name is Ashwin Betty. This has been Africa Good Morning. Swera Shakanaka.